this episode, I'm going to show you how you can use store windows to create some really interesting double exposure effects with one click of your shutter.
Adorama TV presents Exploring Photography with Mark Wallace.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Exploring Photography. I'm Mark Wallace. Well, I'm here in a passageway, sort of a shopping center in Paris, and the thing I love about this, it's got lots of windows and tons of reflections, and this gives me an opportunity to demonstrate one of my favorite photography techniques, and that is a false double exposure. It's a term I totally made up myself, but what it means is when I'm shooting into a window like this, I can either focus on what's behind the glass or the reflection that is on the glass, or maybe if there's lettering or something on the glass, I can shoot at that as well. And so what I get is a photo that has different layers of a photo. So I get the reflection, I get the thing that's behind, and I get the glass itself, and it can create some really unique opportunities. Now the trick to this for me is to use a lens that has a really wide aperture. So I'm shooting with a 50mm 1.4 aperture. This is going to give me extremely shallow depth of field, and that allows me to selectively focus either on the thing that's in the window itself, or the reflection in the window, and let everything else fall out of focus into some wonderful bokeh. So I'm going to shoot some of these, show you the results, and then there's really sort of a trick to process these in post-production, so we'll do that next. But first, let me shoot a few photos, and then we'll head over to Lightroom and I'll show you how to make these look great. All right, I just found a really cool spot, and this is sort of the joy of doing this technique, is to find somewhere where you have different levels of photo inside of the reflections and of what's inside here. And so we've got some really cool colors, a red lamp, we have a yellow couch in there, but there are people behind me that you can't see that are coming out from the other side of the street, and they are reflecting beautifully in this window. And so I'm getting that lamp and the color, and I'm getting the people walking through, and I'm getting these really interesting street shots that look like they've been superimposed with other photos, even though it's all with one shot. So this is a technique that can really give you some rewarding photos. So in this window here, we've got this beautiful painting here, but what I'm doing is I'm actually ignoring the painting altogether and focusing on the reflection in the window of the people walking by. And so I'm getting some interesting portraits of people looking at this picture, and so it's sort of a really neat technique. So I'm going to shoot a few more secret portraits and we'll see how they turn out. Well, the truth is I could shoot this all day long, but we really need to get over to Lightroom so I can show you how to do the post-processing on these images so they really stand out. So let's head over there and start that right now. Okay, before I start showing you how I processed these images, let me sort of show you what they have in common. Notice that they have really high contrast. The blacks are really black. They're highly saturated. The clarity is really high on these images. Now, each of these has sort of been interpreted the best that I can interpret that specific image. There's no one way to process these, and that's the fun of this. You can make it whatever you want it to be. And you can also see that in some of these images you will show up. Here I am clearly in my own photo, and here's Lex taking a video of me making this photo. So that's one thing you have to be aware of. I've seen myself in my own photos when I do this, so watch out that you don't show up in your own photo. But let's get back to interpreting these photos. I want to show you this series of photos that I shot at the window when I was looking up sort of at the skylight here. Notice that I have three images basically of the same thing, and I've interpreted these differently. I've got one that's got really nice blue, so I've taken the color temperature really down to the blue end of the spectrum. This image, same place, I interpreted that as a black and white image, and this one I made much warmer, so it's almost a sepia. And so you can take and make these whatever you want them to be, but you'll notice that they're highly, they're really contrasty, they're saturated. Unless they are black and white, you might want to do that for something that's got really, really nice strong shape like this does. Okay, so what we want to do here is I want to start by showing you the first thing I'll normally do. I'm going to take this chandelier here, hop over into the develop module. The first thing I'm normally going to do with an image like this is I'm going to figure out what is the color palette. What are the colors that I want to work with? And so what I'll do with this one is I'll start by playing around with my color temperature slider. Now I've shot everything in RAW. You want to do that so you have the maximum amount of data to work with in post-production. So what I'm noticing here is when I get down to around the 2200 range, I'm starting to see some blues showing up here. We've got some really nice reds. This orange is starting to show up here. And so it's really nice. I really like that. That's a place to start. I need to make this a little bit more contrasty. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my blacks. I'm going to take them way down. Now don't be afraid to sort of overdo this, because once you take these blacks way down, you can balance that out by opening up the shadows. So I'll do that. Take this back up to around a 59, 60 area, something like that. So now I have really contrasty, and now I'm starting to see those blues and reds, those complementary colors. They're really starting to show up. I'm going to take this clarity slider. I'm going to take that up here to almost 30 to bring out some more of the character of this image. My vibrance is at 15. And now what I can do is I can start doing some things down here in my saturation sliders. So if I click on this little button right here, I can take this up and I can click in a blue area and I can increase that. I'm going to take that way up to, oh, I don't know, about 50, 60, something like that. So we have this blue that's starting to show up. The blues in the chandelier are starting to really pop. I'm going to take these reds here and bring those way up. So I've got the reds that are coming up. I've got these oranges that are really starting to explode. So I'm really getting these nice complementary colors, and there's color bouncing all over the place. And you can see that I've started to manipulate this. I can sort of see if there's any green in here. Bring that out. Yeah, we're getting this green that's sort of down at the bottom of the chandelier. And you can see that you can play around with all this stuff and really bring some character into your photo. So I'll kick that side panel out. Let's see a before and after. You can see that, yeah, this was really sort of drab. This is really contrasty. I'll do a straight split here, and you can see that this is really an improvement over what we started with. All right, so that's how I normally will approach an image. This isn't really the best image in the series, but it's a good image to illustrate how to approach it. Find what the color palette is, and then really make it as contrasty as you can. All right, let's take a look at a different image. This is one that you'll see these kinds of images. It looks sort of hazy. They don't look like they have a lot of contrast because they don't. All those reflections sort of put a fog on your image. So the way that we can really pull something out of this, we'll go into the Develop module. And what we're going to do here is there is a new feature in Lightroom 2015. It's this dehaze filter right here. It's in the effects at the very bottom of the Develop module. I can increase or decrease this to really bring out some character of an image like this. And you can see this guy is sort of popping out. And notice that we've got a lot of oranges here, so we might not want that. We want to go a different direction. Now I'm going to not go too crazy on this dehaze here, so I'm going to make it about a 35, 36 setting, because I also want to do my own traditional contrast settings, and that is to just get in here, take this black slider, take it way down again, so we're up about 75, 77, something like that. We can start to see that's really coming out. I can take my clarity, take that way up. So now we're seeing super high contrast from that hazy image to a really contrasty image. Then I can go in, I can start feeling out where I want this color. I sort of like that blue, but not that much blue. So we'll take that down to around 3200, something like that. We can play with the tint, see how that works out. I think around 18 or 20 looks pretty good. The contrast could be increased a little bit. And now you can see that we just went from something that was really low contrast and hazy to something that is really nice and punchy. And that is what you want to do. You really want to get in there and make those images high contrast. Now the thing about this image that I really like here is when I see an image like this, I see that it could probably be much better as a black and white image. So I'm going to click over here to black and white, and I think it really works. Now the thing with a black and white image is you can then go in and you can play with your black and white conversion, and you can take maybe this cap and make it a little bit darker. You can make this a little bit whiter. So if you don't know what I'm doing here, I made a video on converting images to black and white, And so that's something that you might want to take a look at. We've included a link in the description of this video. And so I did play with this quite a bit, and here is what I came up with the black and white image. I really like that. It's really grainy. He's got a lot of character, a lot of reflections, and this guy looks like he's just one really mean dude, and I like that. One other image I want to show you that has some techniques that you might have to apply when you're working on these images. With an image like this, we have a lot of different color temperatures. We've got the color temperature of the interior, we've got color temperatures of things that are reflecting, we've got color temperatures of lights in the image. So you might have to do some individual local adjustments. Now it doesn't look like there's a lot going on here in this image, but let me show you two things that I've done. The first is this lady's face right over here. It's sort of blended in with the border, this frame of this photo right here. So what I did is I actually put an adjustment brush right over her face, and you can see where I've brushed that in, and I took the saturation way down. So if I turn that off, you can see that her face was just sort of red and orange. I didn't like that, so I desaturated just her face. So that's one thing you might want to do, is do some local adjustment brushes to change the saturation, the color temperature, the contrast, etc. This guy right here, the main character in our image, I didn't like the color at all of what I was getting there. So what I did is I used a radial filter, and I can turn that on. You can see what I did. So I'll hover over this. You can see that I filtered this entire area that's showing up red right there. If I turn that filter off, you can see that there's just way too much of this sort of yellow. And so by turning that on, what I did was I took the color temperature and I changed it so that it wouldn't have so much yellow in that specific area. It was drawing my attention away from what I wanted, and so I did that filter right there. So two local adjustments, so you might have to do that on your images. So the basic thing that you want to do with all your images, increase the contrast, increase the saturation, and then make them your own. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Exploring Photography, shooting into reflections like this and finding these passageways that there are all kinds of glass and reflections and depth. It's really one of the most rewarding things you can do with your camera. Now remember, the secret to this is to get a lens that has a really wide aperture so you can have that selective focus, so you can shoot inside on the glass or the reflection, and that's going to give you the best results. Well, don't forget to subscribe to Adorama TV. That way you don't miss a single episode. It's absolutely free. And also check out the Adorama Learning Center. We have tons of articles and videos all about photography and shooting video and even audio stuff. So check that out. And thank you so much again for joining me. I will see you again next time.
Do you want great looking prints at low cost? Be sure to visit our easy to use online printing service. Adorama Pix has professionals who treat your images with the utmost care that you can count on. For a quick turnaround on photos, cards, or albums, use AdoramaPix.com.